Guardians of the Rift is not good for the game. Like, it's a haunting feeling because I don't want to stop progress. I don't want to, because they did the right thing in every way on paper, but I have 86 rune crafting now. I started at 65 there, and some of it was a grind, but it kind of flew by. I kind of feel like I don't deserve 86 rune crafting.
I'm about 50 levels from maxing my account. On paper, I'm kind of close, but as a lot of us know, those last 50 levels, they can be pretty rough. A lot of the skills you're left with are skills that are slow and skills that are boring, skills that might cost a lot of money or might not net you any money in return. There are these skills that kind of feel just like busy work. You're just doing it to get to 99. It doesn't unlock anything besides the skill cape. But you play this game long enough, it becomes something you kind of want to do. You kind of have to max your account. But it's been a very slow process for me. It's been very slow. When I look at Wise Old Man, which is a website that calculates how much experience you gain, the experience I gain in a month is like very, very low, especially low in terms of skills that I actually need to train. If a skill isn't fun to train, I kind of just don't do it, which I think is that's a great way to look at some of the things in this game. If it's not fun, don't do it, right? But the problem is some of these skills don't have any fun ways to train it. So like, how do you train construction if it's not fun? Well, there's really two ways. You just spend a lot of money and you train it fast, or you do this other activity, Mahogany Homes, which is it's slow. It's slower. It's still pretty fast, like 150k experience per hour. It's more fun. It's more engaging. You're moving around the world of Gielinor. On paper, Mahogany Homes sounds like an awesome activity. It sounds like kind of what skilling is. It's very like sandboxy. You're traveling the world. You're going to people's houses, fixing up their furniture, repairing their appliances. The world of RuneScape and Gielinor is a huge, huge area. There's so many cities, and not even just cities, like smaller towns or even settlements. There's people all over this place, all over the game. And the idea of traveling to different locations to fix up their houses, it's kind of a cool idea. Now, unfortunately, if you spend any time doing Mahogany Homes, you quickly realize it's not a whole lot of houses. It's 8 houses maybe, spread across 4 different cities. It's more houses than that. It might be 12, 15, 16 or something, but it's not a lot. You do it for about an hour and you will start revisiting the same homes over and over and over again. The sense of exploration and discovering for that activity, like, it's cool at first, but that mystique disappears really, really quick. And it was during this activity that I was training that I started to kind of reflect on skilling in this game. Skilling is like a huge core part of RuneScape. It's also quite unique. And I say that because there's tons of video games, there's tons of MMORPGs that try to replicate the skilling system that RuneScape has. And no game has really been able to pull it off. But you see it a lot with New World or Albion Online, or I try to stay up to date to my MMORPGs, but every now and then you find a game that you can tell was heavily inspired by RuneScape and RuneScape's skilling system. Because on paper, RuneScape's skilling system is awesome. Really, you have this world and then you have, 23 skills that allow you to interact with the world in different ways? There's not really many games where you can go up to any tree and just cut it down. And then you get the materials from it, which are these logs. What could you do with these logs? There's actually a handful of things you can do with them. You could set it on fire and then people can cook on it. You could turn it into bows or arrows or some sort of ammunition. When we were younger, or when we first started playing this game, skilling added a huge factor of exploration into RuneScape. Knowing that you can interact with almost every single piece of land, objects, you can, if it's in RuneScape, it feels like there's almost anything you can do with it. Skilling allows you to interact with so many different parts of the world of RuneScape. mining rocks, fishing in like the waters, and cutting down trees, as I already mentioned. But there's a whole plethora of other things. You kill somebody, they drop their bones. You can do stuff with the bones. And it really made RuneScape feel like a sandbox MMORPG. And I call it a sandbox MMORPG because there's kind of like two types of MMOs. There's the sandbox where, like in real life, you can kind of do what you want with the world. There's no set, go do this, go do that, go do this. I mean, there's things there to kind of motivate you, but it's up to you to decide what you want to do. Just like being in a sandbox, you can build whatever it is you want to do. You could dig a hole, you could throw sand at someone else. You probably shouldn't, but you could, in theory, do a little PvP in the sandbox. Versus the other type of MMO, which is the theme park MMO. It's not a sandbox. You can't do whatever you want. You can kind of set your own goals, but really, there's a bunch of rides put in the MMO that you can go interact with, that you can go enjoy. And these rides come in the form of PvP minigames or battlegrounds or PvP activities. They might come in the form of dungeons or raids or some other PVM activity or some other type of activity that the devs decided to put in the game. But the way you interact with it is you go to this MMORPG and you choose the rides that are put in front of you. But as I look at skilling in recent years, I've noticed a little bit of a shift. Things have been changing a bit. There's been this huge push to make skilling fun, which is great. Every skill should have a fun way to train it. This is a video game after all. If I have to train these skills to 99, I don't have to, but if I'm going to, there should be a way for me to do it so that I'm actually having fun and I'm not, trying to find a way to make the experience less miserable. So they're doing that. They're adding these new activities to skilling, which are fun. Wintertodt, Temperos, Gardens of the Rift, Giant's Foundry. But as I think about it, the way that skilling is being approached in order to make it fun is by turning RuneScape into a more of a theme park MMO RPG. Instead of adding new things to discover within skilling, to go explore and learn how you can interact with the world, instead you are sectioned off in these small little instances, these little mini games, these activities that kind of separate you from everything else. And while it is fun, and I do enjoy it, I've been thinking, like, is this good for the game to move away from the sandboxy atmosphere of things and move towards a more theme park, as we're starting to see as more raids come out, as more activities come out, and these new skilling bosses. And some of those questions is what I'm hoping to answer on today's episode of OSRS Rambles. This is a series I do from time to time where I bring on different guests and different people within the RuneScape community to talk about themselves, their experience with the game, and sometimes to dive into a very specific topic, which you may have already guessed has everything to do with skilling. So on today's episode, I brought a longtime friend of the show, someone who I talk to quite frequently in our Discord and clan, one who considers himself a skiller more than a PVMer. He is an Iron Man. He's also someone who has tried to jump into the HLC mindset. If you don't know what the HLC is, that is the high level community, aka those guys who go for 200 mil experience, the sweaties of the sweat. Now, my guest today is not quite there, but he is someone who tries to put himself into the mindset of these HLCers. What I'm trying to say is this person does 2-tick wood cutting and 3-tick fishing from time to time, or whatever the actual proper methods are. Today, my guest is none other than HOYT himself. If you're in the clan or part of the community, you may recognize his name. And we decided to sit down and really dig into skilling in this game. I wanted to chat about what do we think skilling I wanted to chat about what we think Jagex was trying to accomplish with skilling in the early days. Or really, what is skilling when you really boil it down? What is it in terms of this video game? Why did we like it so much? Why is it such a core part of RuneScape? And why can't other games get it right when it comes to skilling? We also talk about what I consider and I labeled the death of skilling, but really it should be the fall of skilling. This period in time where we weren't seeing many new innovative skilling updates, but there was a botting problem and there was a problem with people who didn't want to do skilling but still wanted the resources, and we finally started seeing these resources being introduced into the game through PVM, which is what I consider one of the first steps to, quote unquote, the fall of skilling. I know, I'm being a little dramatic, but as we see today, I'm being a little dramatic, but I know, I'm being a little bit dramatic there. And finally, we touch on the last, and finally, we also talk about the step towards more of these skilling activities, these skilling bosses, these skilling mini games. We talk about how this positively affects the game, but also some of our worries. How does this negatively affect the game? Where do we think this sort of process, when it comes to making skilling fun, what does this mean for the game 5 years down the road? So, without further ado, I hope you enjoy today's episode. So, this week, I don't even know if it feels like just this week, but like in general, I've been kind of in a bit of a skilling rut where there's a lot that I'm kind of making my way towards maxing, but I have a lot of skills I have to grind out. And I'm constantly asking myself, am I even having fun? Like, why am I doing any of this? I mean, it's nice to see numbers go up, but sometimes I've been wondering, like, none of this is really that much fun. And I've been doing like mahogany homes and other skilling stuff like that some people say they really like. And I used to say I really liked it, but I've been in this weird rut where I'm like, I don't know if I really like it right now. Anyways, one day I was sitting on Discord and I was talking with our guest today. We were just chatting about skilling. It's about skilling in general. And we kind of were talking about like how skilling has changed over the years and how like skilling has been a lot of fun. Like they have introduced a lot of cool things, like, you know, Guardians of the Rift and all these other activities that a lot of us will say it's really enjoyable to do. But skilling has really evolved. And while it sometimes feels like for the better, what if it's not for the better? What if there's some negatives that are coming with it as well? I've been feeling like what I loved about skilling when I first started playing RuneScape, and this as a kid, the concept of it has kind of died, and Jagex and the player base has moved on and they want something else from it, which while it's fun on the surface, I feel like it's very shallow. And it is almost a polar opposite of what skilling was and what made skilling sort of fun to begin with. Anyways, we're gonna get into it in a second. Hoyt, you've been hanging out in the clan for a while, and we talk a lot on Discord. And this is when this conversation came up, and then I thought, hey, this could be a podcast.
Yeah. How are you, Dilz? Thanks for having me on, mate.
Oh, no, thanks for coming on. Yeah, I invited you on to talk about it because in a lot of ways, not in a lot of ways, but in some ways, there's things that you liked about skilling and you were like defending skilling when we were talking about it. And it was something that I couldn't fully understand.
I do have to say, I've listened to the podcast for about 3 years, maybe off and on at times as I played other games, but I've always heard, whether it was you and Heartless or think when I started listening, it was Magpies. But I would hear skilling get neglected by you guys, and I was like, oh man, I got to reach out to Dills. We got to talk about this because you were always talking about AFKing, rune crafting, and things like that, and I was like, man, I want to pick his brain about doing lavas or I don't know. Just wanted to talk about skilling, and it's so often and common to find people who are really interested in PVM, and unfortunately, that has also kind of meant that they hate skilling, and it doesn't really have to be that way.
It's almost like this triangle where, not the combat triangle, it's like three pillars of RuneScape. I think I've described it as the three pillars of RuneScape in the past, where it's like you got your PVM, you've got your skilling, and you got your PvP. PvPers love PvP, but a lot of people don't like the PvPers, and we're not going to get into that today. And then there's PVM, where everyone loves PVM and all that sort of fun stuff. It is fun. It's very rewarding, and I can understand why people love it. I mean, I love PVM. And I think you do as well, right? You like PVM.
Yeah, absolutely. I came from World of Warcraft as a raid leader, very, very, end game and sweaty PvE is what they call it. But there really is there's very little skilling in that game. So that's partially why. But yeah, I love PVM. I think I'm just more patient than others when it comes to, there's some people who are so thirsty for PVM. They're like, which boss can I kill? And I'd rather approach it as which boss should I approach first when I'm ready? Or, a little bit more of a patient approach as opposed to, I can't believe, like, I hate everything in this game. I just want to see some hit spots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think a lot of people see skilling as like a vehicle or a tool to get better at PVM, as in like you need to skill not even really for the food anymore. You need to skill for like stats for like quests that will give you your Barrow's gloves or ancient magics or whatever. Name your reward you get from a quest. But nowadays, we get a lot of resources from skilling from PVM. And that is almost like the first moment of skilling's downfall. But I feel like we're getting ahead of ourselves, because I do want to talk about what seems like the downfall of skilling. But before we get there, I've been thinking a lot, like, what is the point of skilling? And that's it's a really vague question, but I guess I should ask you, Hoy, like, when you think of a great night of skilling, and we should preface this with you're also an Iron Man, so you have that
different goals, yeah,
different mindset, yeah, and different things to enjoy. When it comes to skilling, what is it, when you think of it, like right off the top of your head, what is it about skilling that you tend to really enjoy?
I think there's a million different things. The first one is I genuinely feel like I'm building up my account to PVM in the future. So I feel like if I knock out skilling out of the way, I actually have a chance at, maxing one day by doing, 99 Slayer towards the end. As opposed to a lot of people I know who have maxed, they get, max combats, they get 99 Slayer, and then they've just got 6-7 months of doing mining and agility, and they hate their life, and woodcutting, so it is quite rewarding to feel like I'm like, doing things in a somewhat of a proper order. But, everyone I talk to is always pulling my leg about, why aren't you PVMing? Why are you waiting so long to do this, that? So that's subjective. I think another thing is something I don't think about a lot, but is a huge factor, is you don't have to really make trips, or there's no interruption in gameplay when it comes to skilling. Let's say you're cutting trees, you fill your inventory, you bank or you fletch, and then you restart. It's very simplistic, as opposed to Slayer, which is everyone's favorite. I really don't enjoy the trip aspect of it, in the sense that, well, now I need to look up the most optimal loadout. So I have to get my gear. What happens if I'm missing a piece of gear and I don't know what to fill it with? Well, that's an extra, 5 minutes of thought, possibly having to, I don't know, maybe do a quest or, some other means necessary to get a piece of gear. And then I need food, and then I need potions, and then I need to make sure the ratio is correct so that, I don't, get halfway into a trip and run out of prayer pots and only have food, etc. So I think the simplicity of it is quite addicting. And it also rewards my time because, I don't play for GP, quite obviously, with Iron Man. So just seeing the number go up is one of the most rewarding aspects. And instead of chasing GP per hour, I just chase XP per hour or EHP or something like that. So you can kind of see there's like a bunch of little things.
There's probably like a lot of satisfaction involved with skilling, and more so with like an Iron Man. In a way, it's almost like, you get to hoard all these supplies and
Yes.
yeah, and everything you skill for, it has a purpose. Even if you don't need, if you wood cutting magic logs, you could probably think of like 3 different ways you're going to use them. Whether it's like I can turn them into more arrows, or I can
birdhouses.
Right there. I didn't even think about birdhouses, but yeah, fletching into bows, and you can alch the bows, which makes just pure GP, which don't always need, but I mean, it can do that.
Yeah.
And then I think with PVM, where it's almost like counters skilling, because PVM often PVM often you're kind of dipping into your supplies for things one way or another, which that can be hard. I think it's nice to look at your account, especially as an Iron, but mains too. You look at your bank and you see got a lot of just random things. You've got a lot of like potions, or a lot of secondaries, a lot of herbs, a lot of logs, a lot of steel bars, whatever it is. All these, it's nice to see a lot of them in your bank, because then you don't have to worry. You have an abundance of it. It feels good. It feels kind of cozy and comforting knowing that like everything is, those steel bars are cannonballs just waiting to be made, versus if you don't have the steel bars, then you got to go make the steel bars, which means you might have to go mine or retrieve them in another way.
Yeah, like a sense of security or something.
Yeah. So it does make your account feel more well-rounded. And taking a trip down memory lane, I remember it was kind of it was a flex to have a skill be your highest skill. I remember I always wanted my wood cutting to be higher than my combat stats, because I wanted somebody to look me up and be like, oh, this guy's a true gamer. He doesn't just kill things. He's out here wood cutting magics. He's got a high wood cutting level.
Why didn't I play during that time, man? Shit. Yeah. I was born in the wrong generation.
Yeah, maybe. When did you start playing RuneScape?
So
do you remember the year?
I'm a young guy. I'm 26. So I started playing RuneScape 2 in like 2004 or 5. But old school RuneScape, I played and started listening to the podcast like the same month, because I'm such a gamer. I had to completely take all of my free time and dump it into one thing. So there's always like, I go on the YouTube hunt when I play a new game for like a content creator, and I go on the podcast hunt because I love driving and listening to them. But when mobile came out, so late 2018, because their marketing, I had got this kind of crappy sales job that was all on the telephone. There's a lot of like waiting and just talking, like not thinking. So I wanted a game that I could kind of play on my phone, AFK, and a lot of mobile games are terrible. And one day, RuneScape's marketing team had finally given me a banner ad or something. And I was like, holy crap, man, I loved this game when I was growing up. Used to play it so much.
That's cool. It's cool to hear like getting hit by an actual ad. Like sometimes, I started playing just because I remember when they were polling this game back in 2012 or something. And then, so I jumped on when it first came out.
I did vote for that. I remember seeing that on Facebook.
I remember voting too. Yeah, and they made you pay for members in order to vote. So you're just like, okay, I guess I'm subscribing.
Okay, I think I just signed the petition before the vote then, because I didn't pay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think it was a YouTuber or someone in the RuneScape scene made a petition to like, let's bring back old school servers. And that actually worked. You can go watch the documentary and they talk about the old school servers and kind of what what influenced it. And then they pulled it. And then in order to vote, as not one of the first polls, but it's the first old school RuneScape poll. There it is. But you had to be a member. So I remember like, all right, I guess I'm paying this $7 or how much it was at the time to do this and to pay. But and here we are. But anyways, going back to like what I was saying about how skilling was kind of a flex for your account, and we used it as a flex to, you didn't want people to look at your account and see, oh, his combat skills are his highest. This guy doesn't really like this game. He just likes to kill shit. But I think about like, what did I really enjoy about skilling back in the day? Because I mean, you click on a tree, it's really not that fun. You just click and wait for it to chop down and you collect some logs. It's satisfying, but it wasn't like, and watching the experience, but I remember like, what was it about little version of Dilz that enjoyed clicking these trees so much? And I think part of what made skilling so cool was the exploration part about it. And it's like, you mentioned World of Warcraft, skilling's in World of Warcraft, skilling's in a bunch of different MMOs, but none of them can do it like RuneScape does. And we see this all the time. At least I see it all the time because I love looking at new MMOs coming out. There's so many games that are heavily inspired by RuneScape, and they are open about it. Hey, this is inspired by RuneScape, and they're trying to do what RuneScape does by having all these different skills. Albion Online is one that kind of has a bunch of different skills that you can master into. But a more recent one was New World. I'll be honest, I never played. Did you play New World?
No, but I have heard the skilling was very RuneScape-esque in the sense that it was a huge grind, but people found it very cozy and like, okay, so half of the people, most people agree that it was way too grindy and they didn't want to hit the max, which is probably the same as RuneScape, but pretty much everyone universally agreed that just the gameplay of throwing your axe at that rock and listening to the music and looking at the animals or NPCs go by, whatever, the grass flowing was like quite cozy and magical. And you just, you'd want to just stay on there all night and just take in the ambiance.
Yeah. Yeah. People called it like a 4K version of RuneScape, even though it was kind of like a shell of what if it was trying to be RuneScape, it was kind of like the very shallow version of it, even though they've made strides to make that game good recently that I've read, but doesn't matter. That's not the point. The point is that RuneScape did something special with skilling that a lot of games saw was unique, and they've kind of tried to replicate it. But I still think that, back in 2004, what made skilling so very cool was, it was the exploration part of it. Like almost every part of this game, you could chop down like just random trees that you saw. Like you can't do that in World of Warcraft. You can't even interact with the trees usually. But here you are, you can cut down these trees, and now you got this log, and you're like, what do I do with this log? Oh, you can set it on fire. Okay, set it on fire. And then you see people cooking. Where the hell these people come from? They're cooking their cows. You're at Lumbridge. This is probably exactly what a lot of us did. We cut down some trees. We have this log. We set it on fire because we're like, wow, apparently we can set it on fire. And then people are cooking beef from the cows that they've been killing. And you're just like, what the hell is going on? Like everything kind of leads into each other. Like, this is awesome. You're telling me that I can get unlimited healing food by killing these cows, and then I can cook it with the logs that I cut from this tree over here. And yeah, that part was fun. And then you would see that like, oh, there's these fishing spots, and you fish there and you get some fish, but there's other fishing spots. And you're fishing kind of on the coastline of an ocean. You're going to get different fish from that one. And this one is like a river, and you're getting salmon and stuff. And it's like, holy shit, you can just like fish, and you can just fish in a lot of different spots in the water. And I think RuneScape did a really good job at putting fishing areas in a lot of places that you'd stumble upon. So like, you can't fish just
Draenor.
Yeah, you can't fish anywhere, but you'll probably come to this Draenor area, and then you can fish there.
I'm thinking about wood cutting. Sorry, but the point remains. There is fishing, anchovies. Okay.
And in a way, like that's what like you would fish. Okay, you can fish there, and these guys are wood cutting, and somebody's burning logs, so then you can just cook off their fire. And it was like this really cool and really immersive part of the game where you're like, wow, what else can you do? And you find these rocks, and you can sometimes mine them, but not always, but you can, and you get some ore, and then what do I do with this ore? You can make armor with it, and you can make other things like what the hell is bronze wire used for? I don't know what that is, but I can make it. I can make nails, not really because I'm not a member, but what are these nails for? Oh, you can build a house, so I can smith. I can so like it leads this journey of like you mine a rock, you get the rock, you turn it into a metal bar, you turn the metal bar into something that you can then build a house with. Like, oh, that sounds really cool. As I'm saying this, I'm like, this game is fucking awesome.
Yeah, it really created this ecosystem of what's the word? Self
Preservation?
sufficiency.
Sufficiency, that's a good word. That's good. Better than mine.
As a little kid, you thought you discovered like a loophole in the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're like, oh my God, I can just sit here and get combat experience all day because I can just save the meat and then cook it on this fire. I don't have to bank. Like I'm going to be level 99. Like my friends aren't going to believe it. And I think, yeah, that was definitely the magical part of childhood. I killed cows for cowhides for money and free to play for the longest time.
There it is. You could sell the hide or you can turn it into armor, you know?
I mined pure essence for way too long for, slave rates of GP.
Yep.
And it was just, I was exploited as a young child in this game. But
I mean, I think many of us have been.
Most people were.
Yeah, I joined a coal mining company, and really, what I was doing was I was selling coal for very cheap, and someone else was just profiting off of it. It was fun though, but it made the exploration part of the game really cool. And like, yeah, rune crafting is another great example. You find this talisman, you're like, what the hell does it do? It points you in this direction, and then it leads you to this like magical rock, this altar, and then you enter inside of it, and then you can just turn the rune essence into these runes that you can then cast magic with. Like everything kind of just leads. It's almost like that Iron Man journey where, you know, you need to kill this boss. So you're doing
everything's one small favor.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like that, but skilling was like that, but all of it was like you were learning and exploring. You didn't know you could light this fire and then kill this cow for its meat and then cook it. You kind of just like discovered it, and it was really cool and like really special. And it made like, what else? I'm only level 1 and I can do all this. What happens if my wood cutting's level 50? Like, what can I do then? And then I think that's where things stopped. You leveled up and then you kind of realize that like there's a lot of potential, but it's almost like they moved away from that. Maybe it was towards more PVMing. I'm not too sure what it was, but like, and the grinds maybe just get so long that it's so huge that, you know, you're level 75 wood cutting now and you can cut the best tree. It takes forever to cut the tree. What can you do with these magic logs? Well, you can set them on fire, but that does nothing different than a level 1 tree. Or you can turn them into a short bow or a long bow. And really, the short bow is the only one you're going to use to kill things. The long bow is kind of useless. You're going to alch those for money.
And the logs, you know, don't sell for much on the GE. Why would you do it? You have the max quest requirement, like, you know, go do Slayer.
It's like the higher level you got, the less options. The path, you know, it's if skilling was like a family tree sort of thing. I don't know what you call those diagrams, but you can picture it. The higher level you got, the less options you got to do with it. I think for me, that's where like the curiosity just like died down, because you're like, oh, there's really nothing else I can do with, you know, with some of these skilling things. It's all kind of the same since level 1 at this point.
Yeah.
But then, I mean, so that was like when we were kids and we're growing up and stuff. And I'm sure they continued updating it for RuneScape 3. I'm kind of out of the loop with RuneScape 3. I do know they got a lot of cool stuff when it does come to skilling. But when old school RuneScape was starting to get popular, skilling, the game in general didn't get a lot of updates. But skilling in particular, it was really hard to get updates for skilling because nobody wanted to see experience rates higher. Nobody wanted like huge changes in the meta. And what started these techniques were like tick manipulation, we'll call it, where you like 2-tick fish and all this sort of stuff became a thing, which I think it hindered the progress of what updates we could see with this game. But I know that you're somebody who does tend to enjoy like the tick manipulating, skilling parts of this
Oh
game.
yeah.
Like to me, I've tried it. I'm not really good at it, so maybe that plays a part of it. But I don't really find it fun. And when I hear like when you tell me that you enjoy tick manipulating, to me it seems and you're not alone. I mean, tons of people enjoy skilling that way. Tons of people do it. But for someone like me, I'm like I can't really understand the joy that comes from doing it, especially if you're doing it for 3 or 4 hours. If you're doing it for like a long period of time in one sitting.
Yeah.
I guess when you reflect on yourself when it comes to that sort of stuff, do you know what it is about that you enjoy?
Yeah, part of it, the main reason I started trying is like, okay, I have been AFK barb fishing and I'm tired of, dropping an entire inventory so fast and like AFK isn't working anymore. My level's too high or whatever. So I think that's kind of when I started looking into three ticking and okay, well, why do they bring an herb and a tar? Why do they bring a knife and a log? I don't understand like what's going on in these YouTube videos of, the fastest skillers in the world or whatever. So a lot of it was just curiosity. I love breaking games just like anyone else. Finding it's not really it is an exploit, but it's not like an exploit in the sense that the community finds it cheating or anything. But yeah, a lot of it was just the challenge of these people act like people who tick manipulate are like some gods or something, right? Like they're playing chess and you're playing checkers. It's like that thing. Like, oh, I'm not one of those guys. But I think the part of me, is quite hard headed. It's like, no, those guys aren't special. They've just spent a little bit more time learning this.
When you talk about
So,
these people, these like the people going for 200 mil every skill.
yeah, they're like these mystical beings, right? Or even now, it's just some people who max or people who just have crazy accounts, and often a lot of people write them off like, oh, you know, I'm not one of those guys. I can't just do tick manipulating and stuff like that. And a lot of it was just a self confidence of obviously I can learn it. I mean, these guys aren't like special athletes. Maybe they are, and I'll be wrong, but then at least I'll know. So a lot of it was curiosity of why are these guys like kind of, I wouldn't say praised, but treated as these mystical creatures who can tick manipulate. I wanted to be one of those people that, someone spoke about or whatnot. Um, so a lot of it was just trying. And, full disclosure, I'm still quite terrible at it and I don't reach, the highest XP per hour. And sometimes I do it wrong for an hour straight. And then I'll ask, like, Raichu, be like, hey, look at this video. Am I doing it right? He's like, no, you're completely doing it wrong. And I'm like, oh, okay. But that's part of the experience was, I think the first like three ticking I really learned was sand because otherwise it's a 5 tick action and you're just losing. You need all this sand for crafting as an Iron Man to make molten glass to blow into lantern lenses and light orbs and whatever. Um, and it's quite a daunting amount. So just by doing the math, you can shave off hours of mining by putting in more effort. So it was one of those, I see it as a perfect like scale of effort and reward where I could AFK it, but I'm going to be miserable longer. So what if I'm just more miserable for a shorter period of time, Um, so yeah, some of it is that masochism. I like feeling if a grind is too easy, I find myself tapping out. I don't feel challenged. But if there's something like Mage Training Arena and the Telegrab room, I mean that was one of my hardest grinds just because it's so soul sucking and masochistic. Really, it just hurts to do. But yeah, perhaps that answers your question, but a lot of it was the challenge as well as I want to reach, max or as close to it as I'm capable. in the shortest amount of time. So it's really just like a speed running type of mindset of whatever means possible. I want to do it. I want to be one of the greats. I want to put my name somewhere.
So I guess it's less about you enjoying it, but obviously there's some joy to be had. Otherwise, like no one's gonna do something they absolutely hate. But it's to me, it sounds like less about enjoying it and more about you are sprinting to the finish line while everyone else is just kind of jogging, and it's enjoyable to see you kind of zoom towards that.
And there is kind of that grind, gritty feeling that I get from RuneScape that I really like long for in games. Like the brutal long grinds that take forever is kind of why people are drawn to this. They're quite addicting to persevere through, such crazy odds.
I like that people can break the game like that. I mean, I'm not going to do it.
I wanted to prove to myself that these aren't all these people who write themselves off as, oh, I can't do that. I'm not good enough. I'm not a gamer. I don't know the game well enough to bother. It's like, no, dude, you just need to sit down for one night and you need to get the items and be patient and ask the right people and just learn. It's like a small amount of effort for a great reward, knowing that it's like solving a Rubik's Cube, Dills. It's like, I never learned how to solve one. That's what they're called, right? With the different colored sides and you twist it. Yeah. But it's all, from what I understand, I've never solved one, but it's all pattern recognition. And once you kind of solve the game, they're quite easy. And then you have people who do it as fast as humanly possible. But I didn't want to be one of the guys, which I currently am, who's just like, oh no, I don't know how to learn that. I wanted to set aside the time so that I could join this fake club of, yeah, I figured it out. I can do it. And I think that's the reward.
So yeah, right around that time that things were getting discovered, the 2 ticking methods, and you saw a lot of people kind of grinding towards 200 mil, because I honestly think, part of me thinks that the reason that started was there wasn't really a whole lot to do in this game. But I mean, like, you put a goalpost far enough, people are going to try to do it just to be the first one to do it. We did start getting updates though, and a lot of them came in the name of like PVM for the most part. We started seeing, Zulrah was like the big one, but Zulrah was like the first problem, and it's almost like the first. I want to call it. I'm gonna just for dramatic effect, we're gonna call it the death of skilling. Zulrah to me was like the first step towards the death of skilling. And I say that because Zulrah was one of the first big bosses in this game, and it was a fully unique boss. And for a long time, people called it the Prophet Snake because
still do.
They still do, but it has been nerfed like 3 times at this point. It was ridiculous how much money it spit out before. I encourage anyone to go back and you can find the first time they nerfed Zulrah, and it's like it used to drop like hundreds of sharks. Like it just so many resources and skilling items were coming from it. And it's because like a lot of people weren't really into skilling unless you were kind of tick manipulating, because they didn't have Wintertide, they didn't have Temperos, they didn't have Volcano, they didn't have all these like activities that people now find a lot of joy from doing. So it's kind of like, do you like clicking on trees and wood cutting for logs? And if you don't, then, well, now you can go kill bosses and you can get them. And by the way, it's going to be faster. And so it became faster. And I should say as well, part of it was they were combating bots. They didn't want all the magic logs in this game to be coming from the bots who are wood cutting it. So they were like, let's just put all these items on a Zulrah drop table, and it will just flood the market, so the prices will go down, so bots are making less money. I think that was part of it as well. But anyways, I call it the death of skilling because here we are. It's been, 7 years, 6 years, whatever. It's been a while since Zulrah has been released, and a lot of us can look at any PVM monster. A lot of Slayer monsters at this point have been buffed as well, and a lot of them they piss out resources like crazy. Like look at gargoyles. They drop steel bars, and they drop metal bars. Like, and they drop a ton of them. To me, I started looking like, oh, that felt like the death of skilling, because I'm gonna get your perspective on this, but I'm getting a little long-winded here. But skilling versus PVMing, they were seen as two different things. PVM used to be this activity you did where you made no money unless you got a big drop, and then you made a lot of money. So if you look at any of the God Wars bosses, if you don't get the unique item, you're not making much money at all. You're probably losing money from the resources. It's still good money. If you get tacits, that's like 30 mil. That's still good money. That's really good money. That's way better than what you would get from skilling. But if you went to go do bandos for 1 hour, there's a really high chance you're going to walk out in the negatives. But people saw skilling as consistent money. They were like, no, but you can go woodcut magic trees and you are guaranteed 150K that hour, or however much you would make. So PVM was like, you hit the high, you hit, it was like gambling. You made a lot of money at times, other times you made no money, whereas skilling was very consistent. But then as we saw Zulrah and then Vorkath and then all these other bosses trickle out, skilling no longer became a consistent money maker because PVM was also a consistent money maker, but it was better. Okay. Now, when you look at PVM versus skilling today and on your iron, like what are your, very open-ended question. What are your thoughts? What do you think? What do you think the impact of PVM has been for skilling?
I think to start with where your kind of entrance began with something like Zulrah, I think it was less about the drops making it so that you don't have to skill anymore. I think it was less about that and more about, wow, look at what Jagex can make in this game that's challenging. Because before that, I mean, I'm not a heavy PVMer, but, I guess God Wars, flicking your prayers and things like that was probably the biggest challenge before that.
Yeah, I guess. But it was more of like a group boss.
It kind of introduced this whole layer of they can actually create these bosses in the game that are extremely challenging. And they just so happen to drop these items that are heavily botted. So it's kind of two birds, one stone. I don't think many people connected the dots and said, oh, because I have 200 sharks, I don't have to, go fishing. Because I think they would have just gone to the GE anyways. However, to go to the end of kind of, your question of, how do I think PVM affects skilling now? It's quite difficult, but I decided very early on in my account that skilling should logically come before PVM, and I still don't really know if that's the correct answer. I don't know, because I kind of want to flip this back to you. Do you think it's shorter period of time or faster or something to get 99 Slayer and then go skill? Or do you think it's shorter to do all this skilling and then use these items that you've gained from skilling to PVM? Because obviously something like smithing, I mean, you're not really going to make your own rune scimitar, are you? You're going to go
Hope
kill
not, yeah.
something. Yeah. So that's kind of what I told myself going into this account was I'm going to knock out all of the long skilling grinds before I PVM. I want to do one thing at a time and do it to my fullest extent and hop around. But yeah, that's kind of why I sunk my teeth in and said, I'm going to get the quest cape. And after the quest cape, I'm going to get the diary cape. After the diary cape, I'm going to work towards the max cape while I raid. That was kind of my progression.
Yeah.
And that's how you end up, getting 99 fire making, straight into thieving, straight into fishing or whatever you want.
I think like the good thing from that, it's kind of like, I think the positive part is when you have all these skills, when you go do your Slayer, you'll have tons of potions, probably. You'll have tons of food. Probably those are going to be the main ones. You probably have maybe a lot of runes for teleporting around and stuff, but you're kind of all set. You can just like kick back and really enjoy combat in this game.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like if you try
Agility too.
yeah,
It's a good one.
you can just skip. You don't have to slog to get to Cerberus. You can just take the shortcut. You don't have to run through the blue dragons and all that. But I don't think it's possible to. I mean, it is possible, but I think it's less. It'll probably be more frustrating if you wanted to start with combat first, because then you're going to be out of food at some point, and then you need to or come up with money to buy food.
And you have to start at the bottom, right? You'd have to go start with shrimp.
You got to figure out, where do you like? You could go to the Warriors Guild and get your cheese potatoes, but
oh yeah.
So then I think if you start with combat, there's gonna be a lot of bouncing back and forth of like, okay, I'm out of supplies again. Let's go get this or that, and it's almost like best to do a balance, because then at the same time that you do get a lot of resources from skilling too. You get a lot of herbs. Sometimes you get a lot of food, depending on what you're killing. You can get seeds, and so it's almost like they both feed off each other. Yeah, GP too.
I mean, I did 99 thieving at RD Nights, and that money did not last long. I mean, I made a bunch, but now that I'm deep in Slayer, I've always got 5 mil cash stack, and I can go spend it all on, broad arrow tips for fletching and know that it'll be back shortly. I don't have to do some terrible agility pyramid or something like that to get raw GP. But that's kind of a unique Iron Man problem. But I do still ask myself that question. It's like, if I lost my account through some tragic means and had to do it all over again, well, the big question would be, would I? And I wanted to do this all over again. Would I do it any different? And would I focus on PVM first now that I'm a little more experienced? I still think the answer is probably no. I mean, I don't know. I like to be patient. I like to go into PVM knowing I don't have any other grinds I have to return to that I don't like.
It's tough. I think it depends on each person, but I know, like, for me, like, I do this with a lot of games, not with RuneScape because I don't play in Iron, and it's kind of like the worst. Like, I'll be playing a game like RimWorld, which is like this game where you can build a base and then you can fight things and you can do all these cool things of attacking other bases, or you can just stay within your own base and build it up. But the cool part is attacking other people and kind of taking their shit. That's kind of exciting. But building up your own base is kind of like skilling, where I would constantly build up my own base. I'm going to spend a lot of time. I'm going to be pimped out. When I go to kill these other colonies, my guys are going to be so strong. They're going to be so pimped out. It's going to be awesome. But by the time I'm at a part where I'm like ready to attack, I'm bored and I want to move. I end up like quitting my colony and I start all over again. And I end up burning out. So like the worst thing that would happen is if you're like skilling and you're all ready for combat, but then you're like, I don't feel like playing RuneScape anymore. You did all this prep, but then when it comes time to take advantage of everything you've been preparing for, you're like, I think I'll play the new WoW expansion.
Yeah, I have that with RuneScape, definitely. Like, even this week, I hit 85 Slayer, which is pretty low for my account, but still huge and awesome. Mm-hmm. And for those who don't know, 85 Slayer is Abyssal Demons, which is the Abyssal Whip, which means you get to, instead of having a Dragon Scimitar for, about 1.5 years for me, I now get to upgrade to this whip, which is just a huge, huge deal. But now that I have the level, man, I still don't have the whip. I don't really, like, I don't know. Mm-hmm. I think the goal for me was kind of getting the number to 85, and now I'm just like, I mean, the whip is obviously going to come, but I'm not over here, pie boosting and barraging and, account dancing to try to speed up my barraging and whatnot to get it. I've kind of been a little burnout this week, but, that's a whole nother discussion, and it's not something you can really put your finger on. But
yeah,
I have that problem with games too, Dills. I like to start accounts. I don't like to see them all the way through. When it comes to RPGs, I want to play like a new class every few weeks.
Yeah, I want to complete every side quest in Skyrim, and now that I'm ready for the main quest, I don't feel like playing anymore. Like, that happens all the time for me. And then the burnout is real. And just using that as a segue to tie it back in, like, I have been feeling burnt out because I have been skilling towards 99. And a lot of things I'm like, if I don't have a good podcast to listen to, I'm kind of bored. Like I am not having fun right now. And so a lot of skills just been sitting, and I've spent a long time working towards, I shouldn't even say a long time working towards maxing, but I've been playing my account a long time that I should have been maxed a long time ago. I just can't always do it because I need to really be in the zone to even fast skills, construction, thieving. Those are like kind of quick, and I can't, it's hard to get myself to do it. And it's because a lot of things aren't fun that I find. I find a lot of things that aren't very fun, and it's why we have this focus on PVM, because most people look at PVM, that is fun. But then when you look at skilling, you have some people who love it, and then you have some people who don't love it. Now this is kind of this is like going back a little bit though, because Jagex has been moving towards making skilling fun again. I don't even know if I should say fun again, but they're trying to make it fun for people. They want people to like enjoy skilling. And the way they've been doing this though, it's different than like what pulled us into skilling in the first place, that exploration part of it where it's like, what does this do? Oh, I'm so excited. What they've been focused on to make skilling fun is like these sectioned off mini games or activities that don't really interact with the rest of the game. They're like their own enclosed thing, but it's kind of more fun. You know, we're talking about like Wintertodd, we're talking about Temperos, we're talking about Guardians of the Rift, even though I know you go visit the other altars in Guardians of the Rift, but still, you're in this own little sectioned off area for besides that 1 second that you run into make the rune. But it's
They're
like these
gamifying it.
Yeah, it's funny.
Everything's gamified now.
You said that when we were talking on Discord the other night, and I was like, yeah, that's true. And then I was thinking about it last night actually. They're gamifying something within a game. Like you gamify
pretty meta.
Yeah, but you usually gamify stuff that isn't really fun, you know, like if you want to learn a new language, Duolingo's kind of gamified it. You gain experience and you level up and all this sort of stuff, but you're gamifying the experience of learning a new language, which fine. There's I was talking to my father-in-law, and he has been monitoring his blood sugar levels with this monitor that you like, it's like an implant. It's actually really cool. But it's like right in the skin, and he can measure it, and he says, "Oh, it gamifies your blood sugar level. Like you get points if you stay in the green zone, and then you lose points if you go in the red zone." So he's trying to gain as much points as possible. So he gamifies things that aren't really that much fun.
Yeah, like fitness is very popular for this. And when I used to be big into working out, I would use like MyFitnessPal, it's more just to track your calories and things like that. But I would have another app. I don't remember the name of it, but it had like the workout routine I was going to follow that day.
Mm-hmm.
It was a game. It was satisfying to check all those things off the list and know I can move on to whatever else I wanted to do that day. A sense of achievement, if you will.
So it makes sense for things like that. And it's funny when you say like they're gamifying parts of a video game. But they are. Like rune crafting was never thought of as fun. Some people probably ever. Some people did like it, but like there was very small percentage. Most people didn't like it. And a lot of things were like, you know what's fun about rune crafting is that you can actively play something else while you're doing blood runes or something. I can play Divinity or Original Sin 2. I'm playing that game right now. I just started playing. I booted it up the other day. But you can play these other games on the side, and that's fun. And I'll gain my runecraft experience through that. So it's those, like some of the skills weren't fun. So then Jagex like, hey, let's make them fun by making these mini games. But now, and we've been seeing this a bunch, where we have Giant's Foundry for smithing came out. They tried to do it for Volcanic Mine. Yeah, it didn't really work. The rewards weren't that great.
Yeah.
But Wintertodd for fire making, Temperos for fishing, Guardians of the Rift for rune crafting. What else am I missing? Hallowed Sepulchre for agility, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they have like those things there. But that's almost like the polar opposite of what skilling used to be, or skilling is in other parts of the game, where it's like very sandboxy. We think of RuneScape as a sandbox game. So sandboxy, I can cut down this tree. This tree right in front of me, I can cut it down. And this river right here, I can fish it. Probably, maybe. But then you have these
Mahogany homes.
yeah, mahogany homes. But even mahogany homes is like, it seems sandboxy at first, but then you realize that like, oh, you're just repairing like 3 different houses over and over again. So anyways, mahogany homes is what really set me on this track of like, I don't know if I'm enjoying this because I've been doing it this week. And it was like, it's cool at first. Oh, you get sent to go fix up houses around this game. That's awesome. It's actually like 4 houses that you get sent to over and over again. You're like, oh, that's.
Yeah, you just hope you don't get the one in Arty where you have to run around the bush.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you come across that one.
Mm-hmm. I think that one's in Hasidius, right?
No, there's one in East Ardone, and I've never wanted like Jagex to remove an object so much. There's a house on the mini map. You like try to click to path to it. Actually, let's not say that. Let's say if you're clicking outside the mini map. Anyways, there's a 1-tile path that's blocked by a bush. You have to go all the way back around and go around the fence to get in this house. Okay. And it is just, once you know, it'll trigger you.
Yeah, I'll keep an eye out for it.
Because you'll make the mistake and then you'll be so upset.
There's a house in Hasidius that's similar to that and it sucks. But
oh yeah.
So you have the sandbox part where I explained where you can like interact with things randomly and then you get these objects that you can then use. And then when you talk about MMOs, if it's not sandbox, then it's what people called a theme park, where you go into this world and then they have these
You're on rails
pre-built activities or these rides. They might be dungeons and raids or these other activities. But recently,
questing zones.
Yeah, exactly. They're theme parks. Like you can't just do whatever you want. You can choose from like 10 different things, or usually more. But with with skilling, it seems like we're moving towards the theme park idea where we get these skilling rides or skilling activities that don't interact at all outside of that small little area. Mm-hmm. They tried to like blend it with Guardians of the Rift, but I'm going to be honest, it's not the same. I mean,
they may as well be instanced. I mean, it wouldn't matter.
Yeah. I don't know if I've ever seen anyone just randomly, casually running in to do it, but so they tried to blend it there, but we're seeing the fun part of skilling coming from these mini games. And on the surface, I'm like, great, I love it. Give me more. These are fun. But then when I think about it on a deeper level, 5 years from now, is it moving away from the part of what made RuneScape and skilling, but RuneScape in general, so magical? Like what? So I'm going to turn it to you. When you see the direction of skilling with all these new activities, and we have more plans down the road, like this one that has to do with hunting and farming, like what are your initial thoughts? Are you happy to see these Temperosses and Wintertods coming out for all these different skills?
Yeah, it's really tricky. That's kind of why I wanted to talk about it with you, because I think an example of a great one. Well, actually, I'm not even going to introduce that. Let's talk about Guardians of the Rift, because I think it's a perfect example.
Yeah, it's fun. Very fun.
Everyone agrees. Pretty much everyone I've talked to who has played the minigame has said it's awesome. It's great. And Jagex did the right thing by making the XP rates very reasonable. You get about 40,000 XP. If you want to sweat, you can get about 50. And if you want to be really lazy, you can probably get 35 or whatever. So you're getting less XP than doing ZMI or doing these other methods, but you're having so much fun that it flies by. However, I've had this weird feeling in the back of my head that Guardians of the Rift is not good for the game. Like, it's a haunting feeling because I don't want to stop progress. I don't want to, because they did the right thing in every way on paper, but I have 86 rune crafting now. I started at 65 there, and some of it was a grind, but it kind of flew by. I kind of feel like I don't deserve 86 rune crafting. And I think it kind of begs the question of, do you think RuneScape is appealing to people in some way, sense, or form because of the the torture of the grind. I see RuneScape as this like huge, daunting mountain that is, you know, very hard to climb. And at the peak is maxing. We won't even talk about 200 mil all because they're on the moon. But the peak of this mountain is maxing. And most people will never ever get there. But it's this flex of how close can you get. Whereas back in the day, if you said, "Yeah, I have 99 rune crafting," people would send you a link to find therapy near you. Like that's what I miss about RuneScape. I miss this like it's not that I miss it because I can still find it, and something like agility is pretty or mining's different because it's AFK, but I think agility is probably the closest to old rune crafting because it's not AFK. I never did the AFK blood rune crafting. I did ZMI and stuff, but um, I don't know. It does feel wrong to me that they've taken out this aspect of can you actually suffer through and get it done just to say you did and just for the achievement? And can you walk on these hot coals just for, the sake of it? That's kind of why RuneScape is special to me. So it kind of worries me. And some people might call me crazy for thinking suffering is part of this game, but like if you play this game and you want to get a 99, it takes a very specific frame of mind to get that done. But yeah, I don't know. Do you think suffering is like a core part of like why RuneScape's special?
Yeah, that's a tough question. Like I've been thinking, are these like mini games like Guardians of the Rift? Are they good for this game? On the short, I say like, yeah, it's fun. I'm doing Guardians of the Rift. It's great. And I got 99 rune crafting before Guardians of the Rift came out. And it's long and it kind of sucks. And the only way I got it was because I can work from home and I can rune craft at the same time. A lot of people can't do that. So if you're got a job that, if you work in construction or you work just any job that you can't play RuneScape, you're going to have a harder time maxing out. So it's great to have a fun way to do it. I don't know. I don't think there's the brutal. Well, I guess there is. When I think of like RuneScape, is there a punishment factor? I think sort of for certain things. I don't know if it should come from skills because I think every skill should be fun to train. But there are some things that like you look at someone and you're like, oh my God.
1200 gauntlet KC.
There's that. And there's things like, I did the Castle Wars grind where I just AFK'd inside Castle Wars, but it's like 150 hours just for the best chest plate.
And the fish sack you're talking about.
That was another one. Yeah. Like these really long grinds and they suck to do. And I don't want to have to do them, but I am kind of doing them very slowly. But when I see somebody in full Castle Wars, you're like, dude, that's like 300 hours of that game. It's like, that's kind of impressive.
Yeah, you're kind of worried about him too. You're like, Jesus. I see when I started playing this game, every time I'd see an untrimmed runecraft cape, I was like, get me away from that guy. Like, that person is dangerous. Like, they're not normal. And I think that's a unique part of RuneScape that's hard to replicate in other games. So it does worry me that they're making these unfun skills fun. But at the same time, even as I'm telling you this, I'm kind of working backwards in my head. You're only getting 40,000 XP at Guardians of the Rift. So let's do the math. If you could start Guardians of the Rift at level 1, which you can't, it'd still take 325 hours. So that's still impressive. I mean, that's still a crazy grind. I mean, people still get applauded for, I would imagine, for going to 99 there. But I can't help but feel like it could be dangerous in the long run you kind of have to do these mini games. Otherwise, like Winter Tot, no one burns long.
Yeah, like that's what I think about a bit as well. Like, I don't think that every skill I think should be fun. I don't think any skill should have like just be shit to train. And people are saying, well, you don't need to get 99. But it's like, you get to a point where like, that's all I have left to do is to train construction. Why isn't there a fun way to do it? I don't care how fast it is. I would spend 20 hours doing something that's fun, but slow in experience rates over something that's over doing something for 1 hour that's extremely fast but isn't fun. Like I that's my thought process. But the thing that I worry about with something like Guardians of the Rift is, let's say in 5 years from now we keep moving in that direction. Will all the skilling, all the sandboxy skilling parts of the game be empty because everyone is going to Wintertod to train fire making, or they're going to Guardians of the Rift to train runecrafting? I think I worry that if that's their only method to making skills more fun instead of like other more explorative ways, I don't have the ideas, so this isn't great. But you know, we don't see many people training fire making at the GE anymore. You do find the odd person, so it's not that bad. And you need 50 fire making, so you do see people training it that way. And but like the Abyss, you don't see anyone runecrafting in the Abyss anymore.
Yeah, just irons with bloods now.
Yeah, maybe the odd person, but it's really you don't really see too many people. The Iranian altar, people do still run it, which makes me happy. I just checked. I was gonna say Iranian altar's dead. This is why Guardians of the Rift is bad for the game.
XP, that's why. And
but there are people who run it. It is significantly less, but people do still run it. But the worry is 5 years from now, when we've seen new iterations of new fun runecrafting things, could that be negative? I guess my worry is when it comes to these mini games is that one day we'll end up with a theme park MMORPG, and the sandbox part of this game will like not really exist anymore. But that is kind of what makes this game so awesome to begin with.
It's like why people are drawn to it. And I think, when you ask this question, you mentioned like farming and Hunter. I think Hunter is a great example. I really want them to touch Hunter because I've only done birdhouses solely, except for 30 minutes of black salamanders one time or something. But I'm at 82.5, which is okay. But, the only alternative is I need to go get chins so I can kill Kriara at some point for Arma. But that's so far down the road, I'm not really inclined. I'd love for them to do something, but at the same time, I'm kind of being a hypocrite because Hunter is kind of this perfect old school skill that they haven't touched really. Oddly enough, they added birdhouses, which is all I do with Fossil Island. But I don't know. It's quite difficult. It's quite complex. I would love to see a Hunter mini game for my own benefit, but I might go get 90 Hunter there, and then I might feel bad again. Like, oh, I don't know if I really deserve it. And that's probably why Hunter is one of the lowest, besides its uselessness, it's one of the lowest skills at 99.
Yeah, it's true. Do you remember, were you playing RuneScape when Hunter came out? I think it was like 2005.
Because I remember my friend doing it, and looking back, I don't remember what he was catching, man, but I remember thinking it was really cool. But growing up, I was mostly a free-to-play player because I was so young and my parents didn't, trust me with a credit card on a website, which is fair enough. But eventually I got membership and started having a lot of fun. But I was definitely a free-to-play Andy.
It's funny. When I think Hunter is the perfect example of like, it is both the perfect skill in this game while simultaneously being the worst skill in this game. And you've touched on the points. There is, when hunting was released, and it happens now, you explore and you see all these different things you can hunt. There's butterflies, there's these birds flying around, there's these little squirrel things that they call kevets, there's these mounds you can check in, there's these bigger like almost like lion, tiger, bear things that you can set up traps for. And they have a bunch of different biomes too. They have like jungle, they have
cool
desert
outfits too.
Cool outfits.
They don't even work anymore.
Supposed to camouflage.
They used to work or something. Like in the OG RuneScape, they worked, and then when they ported it over, they just never fixed it. I don't know the details, but those outfits used to do something.
Yeah. Okay, it's interesting.
Or they were intended to do something. Maybe I'm wrong.
But there's like, all these, you can catch imps. You can catch the red imps too, the little imps that you can kill. So you get all these things you can stumble across, and you're like, wow, these things are all pretty cool. I want to trap these things. I want to see what happens if I trap this animal. And then, here we are 10, 15 years after it's been released, and we realize there's like
only birdhouses.
Out of the plethora, open up the hunter tab. Look at how many different categories there are: tracking, birds, butterflies, implings, deadfall, box nets, box traps, net traps, pitfalls, aerial traps, clothing, raids, birdhouses, other. Those are all different categories. And then you realize that what is in those categories? It's like nothing worthwhile. You got your chins, you've got your imps that fly around the world, which, by the way, I love the imps that fly around. I touch every single one of them. That's cool.
Yes.
But you have your chins and you have the imps, and those are the only things you're going to use. And then you have your birdhouses, which lets you train it easily, and you get some seeds and stuff from it too, which is cool. But you have all of these things that you can explore, and then you soon learn that it is a very shallow it's a very shallow skill, because there's 100 different things, but you're only ever going to touch 3 of them.
Yeah.
And it's kind of sad. And part of me feels like that is like skilling in a nutshell. Kind of makes me think that like this is a very cool concept, but it is quite shallow once you start looking at it in a lot of ways.
In some ways, I like that it's untouched, but if I had to vote right now in a poll, I desperately want them to introduce a mini game. I'd love for them to touch up Hunter, because it's one of my lowest skills, and I would like a way to do it that's not just birdhouses every 50 minutes. Because I think daily scape, especially for Iron Man, a lot of people get burnt out. They want to de-iron, they want to play a different game when you log on and all you do are your herb runs and birdhouse runs, and then you realize that you don't have much time left and you log off. I do want to say, we talked about Guardians of the Rift, and Guardians of the Rift is a really tricky one because it's so perfect when you look at it, but the deeper you dive, the more questions you might have for the overall health of the game. So I do think there's more opportunities than just a black or white, mini game, good or bad.
Wow, there's probably a whole lot to unpack there when we talk about skilling, because it's such a big part of RuneScape. Can you really boil it down? And we tried our best to break it down, but after listening to it, that's a hard thing to do. And a lot of what I said in this interview, I think I was projecting like what I want skilling to be. I want it to bring back the more explorative and discovering aspect of the game that I don't always feel is there anymore. This could be to do with the polls and other things like that. So when I look back on this conversation, I do feel like there's a lot that I was projecting. I'm in a space where I'm not quite enjoying skilling. Would I enjoy these boring skills if it led to me discovering and exploring different parts of the game that I didn't know exist? If I was doing mahogany homes and suddenly I was in the possibility of repairing any house or any building in Gielinor, would that make it more fun? I feel like it would, but I don't know if that's true at all. Because in the end, some of these skills are going to take hours upon hours to actually grind out. And there's very little activities that stay fun after hours and hours and hours. It's just the way it is. I think Hoyt made a good point where a lot of these skilling activities on paper are a lot of fun. Guardians of the Rift, Wintertodt, Temperos, Volcano. They're fun. They're fun to do. They're fun to engage with. The rewards are exciting. They make it's something to look forward to in these activities. Can we go back and make skilling a more explorative part of the game? I don't know. Probably not as I say this, but we hope so. And I think it's part of the problem is with the polls, we know everything we're getting, and it's hard to, with the polls, we don't get these large expansions. We don't get this huge continent that's already pre-built. Now go explore it. We get them in chunks. We'll get Zaya in one area at a time with activities adding in as time goes on. And I think that might just be the nature of the beast. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm glad that we're getting more enjoyable ways to train skills. And maybe I'm just over. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe this won't lead to a space where this game is less sandboxy, or maybe that era is over. Maybe we've moved on. Maybe we don't want a game that's sandboxy anymore. We want a game with fun activities, fun rides to enjoy like a theme park. That's hard to say. Either way, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I want to hear your thoughts. Did you disagree? Do you agree? I'm curious to hear what you think when it comes to skilling. Also, huge shout out to Hoyt. Thank you so much for coming on this episode today and talking with me about skilling. I had a great conversation. And if anyone wants to enjoy more Hoyt-centric content, head over to Twitch, twitch.tv/HoytStream to enjoy that. Link in the description below, of course. And before we get out of here, we'll leave you with Hoyt's parting words he wanted to give to anybody who's listening.
Go get your total levels up, ladies and gentlemen, and go try to 3-tick, man. Go look up a guide, just try it out, see what it's like. Go tick manipulate, get your sand a little faster, get more fishing and agility and strength XP. And don't ever write yourself off. It's a video game, man. You can do anything.